Hi everyone, I'm Ariella Mervis. This presentation summarizes my critical literature review on IT strategy, AI governance, and organizational culture, and on how these three factors shape AI-driven software and application management. I'll walk through the problem, research questions, methodology, key themes from the literature, gaps, implications, and then the peer review changes that I made for the final draft. So AI isn't just another tool added to enhance productivity anymore. It's now become operational infrastructure that influences day-to-day decisions. The leadership challenge now becomes balancing risk versus value because AI can generate efficiency and insights, but it also introduces new categories of failure, such as biased inputs, privacy violations, poor data quality, and reputational damage when AI decisions go wrong. The third point is that strategy has to evolve because organizations don't adopt AI successfully on technical capability alone. Readiness depends on alignment, governance, and culture working together. This is the core problem statement. Organizations keep treating AI like a technology upgrade instead of a strategic shift. The technical upgrade mindset is the reason so many implementations fail after the initial execution. The literature consistently shows what's missing when AI is framed that way, including alignment to business outcomes, governance structures to manage ethical and operational risks, and a culture that can support change at the scale that AI requires. So the problem is not that companies can't buy or adopt AI. The problem is that they can't operationalize it responsibly and sustainably without treating it as a strategy. These three questions drive the critical literature review. First, how can organizations successfully align IT strategy with AI-driven software and application management? This question is about making sure AI is connected to business outcomes and not random tool adoption. Second, what governance frameworks or regulatory models most effectively reduce ethical and operational risks of AI use? This question includes internal governance and also what we learn from larger regulatory efforts, such as international ones. Third question is, how do organizational culture and IT business alignment influence the success of AI-driven software and application management in organizations? Even well-designed AI systems fail if the organization's norms and behaviors reject them. For the research methodology, I used a structured literature review process. I searched academic databases including EBSCO, JSTOR, Sage Skills, and ProQuest using keywords around AI governance, IT strategy, alignment, and culture. The goal wasn't just to summarize the articles, but to synthesize them into usable strategy insights. The middle column on the slide reflects the workflow: summarize the articles, identify themes, identify key or foundational sources, and then synthesize across literature rather than treating each study as isolated. The final step was important for this course: translating academic findings into actionable guidance and naming future research directions, especially around where the literature has gaps or is contradictory. Key findings. Across the literature, 4 themes repeatedly showed up in relevance to the topic. First, IT business alignment, meaning AI work must start with business outcomes and stakeholder involvement. 2, governance, meaning risk management and ethical oversight aren't optional, they're structural requirements. 3, organizational culture, meaning the norms that drive collaboration, learning, transparency, and psychological safety strongly predict adoption outcomes. And 4th, AI-driven software and application management, meaning the operational shift from manual monitoring and maintenance to automation, continuous insights, and optimization with new risks attached. Theme 1, IT business alignment. This theme is basically business first, then technical, which is a classic CIO rule, but easy to ignore when new technology is introduced. The literature supports starting with business outcomes, such as what are we trying to improve, protect, or enable, and this is where IT4B is relevant. So IT-4B, or Informational Technology for Business, mentions that IT is integrated into business strategy rather than operating as a separate support function. In other words, IT doesn't just deliver tools, but it co-designs capabilities within the business. That connects directly to alignment. This theme also reflects the idea of strategic coordination and continuous engagement. AI systems evolve, models drift, data changes, and business priorities shift. That's why ongoing communication is important. Biz DevOps fits here because it's essentially an evolution from DevOps into deeper business integration across the development life cycle. Biz DevOps emphasizes shared metrics, shared feedback loops, and business participation as a structural feature of delivery. Theme 2, governance. Governance is not just compliance paperwork, it has three major roles in the literature. First, risk management, meaning ethical oversight, compliance, and security controls that prevent AI from becoming an untracked liability. Second, innovation enablement, because it creates safe boundaries so teams can experiment without putting the enterprise at risk. Third, adaptive frameworks, because AI governance can't be static. Models, tools, data sources, and regulations change quickly, so governance needs to evolve. There's also a key tension: standardize versus tailor. Some literature argues that AI governance must be contextual, tailored to national organizational conditions. Other literature pushes for stronger standardization, like shared vocabulary, auditing processes, and common terminology across organizations and even across countries. So that debate matters for IT strategy because it affects how enterprises design governance. The question is, do we build a flexible internal model optimized for our context, or do we align to emerging global standards? Theme 3, organizational culture. The literature positions culture as a primary predictor of whether AI adoption will stick. Leadership commitment matters because employees look for signals. They wonder if AI is a real strategic priority or just a trend that will disappear soon. When leaders sponsor AI visibility and communicate consistently, adoption is more likely to be sustainable. Cross-functional collaboration is huge here because AI adoption is rarely contained inside just IT. You need business stakeholders to define value, legal and compliance to define the constraints, and operational teams to define workflows. If the organization runs in silos, AI adoption becomes fragmented and inconsistent. Learning culture and psychological safety are critical here too. AI adoption requires experimentation. If the culture punishes mistakes, employees will hide issues, avoid using tools, or resist adoption. If the culture supports learning and tolerates failure, employees are more willing to test, report errors, and improve processes. Finally, transparency matters because AI risk often shows up as quiet problems like biased outputs or low-quality data. Cultures that support open communication are more likely to surface ethical concerns early rather than letting them become unspoken disasters later. Theme 4, AI-driven software and application management. Traditionally, software and application management relied heavily on manual monitoring, scheduled maintenance, and reactive troubleshooting. The literature suggests a transition toward AI-enabled automation, where systems continuously monitor performance, detect anomalies, and optimize workflows in real time, or close to real time. The value is continuous insights and optimization. AI can help teams move faster, predict issues earlier, and reduce operational load. But the literature also identifies the new risks like data quality problems, which can lead to confident but wrong outputs, bias, and lack of transparency, which can make it difficult to audit why a system behaved a certain way. Gaps in the literature. The first gap is that there are few integrative frameworks that connect strategy and governance in a truly organization-wide way. Many models exist in pieces, but integration is weak. Second, there's limited focus on AI application management specifically. Lots of research is about implementing AI in a function, but less about AI as a continuous operational layer for managing software and applications. Third, there's a large enterprise bias. SMEs have different constraints, less staff, and fewer governance resources, but the literature doesn't explore them that much. They're more focused on large enterprises. And fourth, although some governance principles may be generalizable across industries, the literature has not systematically identified and validated what those general principles are. Implications. The first implication is that leaders should anchor AI to business outcomes, meaning define the value clearly before selecting tools or business solutions. Second, build governance with real operational structure, roles, audits, and risk controls that are embedded into workflows. Third, measure cultural readiness, because an organization can't scale AI in a culture that punishes learning or blocks cross-functional collaboration. And fourth, treat AI as a holistic process. That means it's not just implementation, but it includes ongoing monitoring, reassessment, improvement, and alignment as the business changes. These implications are consistent with the literature's biggest message, which is AI succeeds when strategy, governance, and culture are in alignment. This slide summarizes what changed after peer and instructor feedback. I strengthened the culture mechanisms, not just labeling culture as a barrier, but explaining how learning norms, psychological safety, and cross-functional collaboration directly enable or block adoption. I updated the language in my literature review to clarify a few claims, including the point of governance principles not being systematically identified. I added a brief note acknowledging gray literature was reviewed at a high level but not included in the final synthesis to strengthen methodological transparency. I added a small compare and contrast point in governance, reflecting the tension between standardization and contextual tailoring. And I also addressed minor APA and typo items. For the conclusion, the main points are that technology alone does not guarantee success. AI requires strategic integration that includes strategic alignment, meaning IT and the business work together to determine the direction and outcomes of the integration. It includes adaptive governance, meaning risk management and ethical oversight can evolve as AI evolves. And it includes an enabling culture, meaning that organization is capable of learning, collaborating, and being transparent about AI risks and failures. AI needs a technical foundation, but it also needs comprehensive strategy. The literature is consistent that successful adoption is not just an IT initiative, but an entire organizational capability. And this slide here lists the references used in this literature review and in this presentation. Thank you so much for observing my presentation.